I'll eventually install corrugated steel panels on our exterior siding, but before we can get to that, there's a lot of prep that needs to get done first. We're going to level the furring strips, starting with the windows as a reference point. We're doing this because the windows are pretty much fixed because how they're framed. Some of the furring strips need to be trimmed where they touch the shiplap. Measure increments for your reference strings. I use 2 feet for mine starting from the bottom. Using door and window shims ended up being the quickest way to level the furring strips. It's not too expensive if you buy them in the contractor packs. The front door bumps out and you won't be able to use a leveling string across it. I ended up using a long level, but if you don't have one, a straight piece of wood will work in a pinch. When it comes to installing J-channel around the door and windows, there were a couple videos that really helped me out. I put those in the article. You can find that link in the description below. With that said, there's a couple tips that I found helpful whenever I was doing my J-channel. This one seems a little obvious, but make sure you measure each side no matter what. There's manufacturing differences, and also write it down immediately. If you're like me, the mind is not a steel trap like it used to be. Take your time and watch how you cut the angles on the corners. Mark everything out in pencil so that you don't cut that 45-degree in the wrong direction. Lastly, make sure you test fit things before you start nailing them in place. Now's the time to do any minor tweaks that you have. Use your window as a reference to make sure things just look right. My windows had a reference line on it as if it was a 45-degree cut framed out. I made sure that the J-channel 45-degree cut lined up right with that. A normal door install will give you a door where the sill plate is sitting on the floor, but the shed is a little bit different. The bottom of the door is about a foot from the bottom of the shed, so I just treated it like a big window and installed J-channel all the way around it. I had a hard time finding information about installing J-channel where the wall meets the soffit. The real painful part of this install is getting the side angle to work so the corners look right. What I ended up doing was giving myself a little extra length on the side cuts and used some tin snips to do some last minute trimming when I installed the front and back pieces. Even with flying blind on this, there were a couple things I was thinking about when I was doing this part of the install. There's some inconsistencies in the wood I used for the soffit. This means that I could install the J-channel up against it, and there'd be natural gaps that would allow any hot air moving up to slowly escape. Second, it would take a lot of driving rain to make it far back in that soffit area. This lends me to believe that while the J-channel in this area helps keep the driving rain from getting behind the sheet metal, a lot of its function really is aesthetics. I found it easier not to cut an angle on the top of the J-channel and overlap this area when installing the corners. If you just staple up the wire mesh used for the bug screen, there's going to be some large gaps. Instead, fold it so it forms a flat surface on the bottom. Install the drip edge 3/8 to 1/2 inch below the shed wall. I pre-drilled the drip edge and used exterior grade screws to install it, just like I did with the J channel in the soffit area. When working with multiple pieces, make sure you overlap the drip edge by 6 to 8 inches. I want to thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Barta's Adopt a Shop Dog cameos next. Get out there and make something, and we'll see you next time.